watching Cartell TV and I'm Amelia. Hooray! We finally get the jacked up Golf because, let's face it, that's what the T-Roc should be.
It's been in other markets for a few years now, and it is based on one of the most famous cars on the planet and produced by one of the few most prolific manufacturers.
So it's got a lot backing it.
On the other hand, it's somewhat limited by the pricing within the segment, and it doesn't really follow the revered Golf in all aspects, especially with these initial options. We expect more to come, of course.
And let's not forget, there is loads of competition. And even though the Golf is a household brand in its own right, most people won't connect the T-Roc with it in their minds. So, let's see what the T-Roc is all about.
With a few exceptions throughout history, Volkswagen has pushed the idea of recognisable yet understated styling for most of its models. They just pick a general design direction for a particular era and keep it in control.
They're currently in the era of sharper design features, and you can really see that on the T-Roc as well.
The front has slim, stylish LED headlights and a recognisable, though not really special grille. The midsection holds these DRLs that double as turn indicators, and the very bottom has fog lights.
This looks brilliant and a real standout when you see them on the road.
The side has 18-inch wheels, and you can get a size larger if you go for a sound and style pack that also adds adaptive suspension to the mix. I don't have it here. The taillights are LED as well, and the rear also shows those sharp angular details with clearly separated sections.
Now, I said VWs are mostly understated, and I stand by it. But that means that they don't have those really in-your-face designs that kind of polarise buyers.
VW always plays to the larger crowd, and this is why most of their cars raise no eyebrows. This doesn't mean they are boring or bland.
In fact, the T-Roc is a really fine example of a modern design that really appeals to the younger segment of the market without alienating the older segment.
There are two engines to choose from. The entry-level style trim has a 1.4 turbo petrol with direct injection that produces 110 kilowatts of power and 250 newton meters of torque. The top twisting force comes from 1500 revs and all the way up to 4000, so that's a very nice range.
I'll tell you how it feels to drive in a second, as this is the engine that I have here.
But before that, I should tell you that it is paired with an 8-speed torque converter automatic. Thank you, VW. And it sends the power to the front wheels only.
The sports version is completely different.
It gets a 2-litre turbo with direct injection that produces 140 kilowatts and 320 newton meters, the latter available from 1500 to 4800 revs. It's paired with a 7-speed dual clutch, and it can push all 4 wheels using VW's 4Motion system.
Even the numbers are different to tell you that there is a significant difference between the two engines. But is it powerful enough to be a must? I mean, I'd rather have it, of course, but is it a must? Not really. The smaller engine actually feels kind of nice.
Not sporty, don't get me wrong. It's not a powerhouse, not even close, but it's responsive and really powerful enough.
With all the torque coming from just 1500 revs, it feels relaxed and doesn't have to work very hard to do its job.
Past 5000 revs, it feels a bit out of breath due to its smaller turbo, but this means it spools up faster at lower revs and...
Let's face it, the majority of drivers aren't going to go past 5000 revs in a T-Roc anyway.
With a range of 2500 revs of top torque starting at just 1500, this engine and gearbox combo gives the best of its ability, exactly where you need it, most of the time.
I also really like that this engine is paired with a proper 8-speed automatic. It does a really great job, especially when driving through the city at low speeds.
There are no paddle shifters, but you can change gears with a manual mode using the gear lever, with VW's famed triptonic function. It also has a sport mode that keeps the revs a bit higher.
I do just want to say the stop-start feature is really quite noticeable. And even though there is an option to turn it off, I just wish there was a way to make it work a little more seamlessly.
Suspension is pretty good, though a bit on the firm side, and it especially gets noticeable on rougher roads.
On better roads, it feels composed and comfortable.
While I usually like more comfortable setups on anything that is not at least a sporty car, I have to say I would like more suspension in this car exactly as it is.
Why? Because it's a subcompact SUV, and there's simply no way to get around its short wheelbase and price point. Physics wins out every time.
Combine that with an elevated body, and if they tried to make the T-Roc suspension supple, they would still fail and give us an uncomfortable, leaning vehicle.
They didn't. And what you get is a composed ride that resembles a sporty and precise feel.
So behind the wheel, it's pretty nice, but you should not expect a sports car or a supple ride in all conditions.
I should also point out that the sportier version, which is the one that I don't have here, would be a much more exciting drive. It has a more powerful engine, it has the DCT, and it just has more features that would appease those looking for a sportier ride.
On the inside, the T-Roc shows some signs of its lower price.
This top of the dashboard is a good example of the hard plastic, and it continues throughout.
However, what you get in all versions is the expected quality of Volkswagen vehicles. Despite some downsides, it does feel well put together.
But I still have to point out one thing. I already said that the T-Roc is related to the Golf and that it's already been out in other markets for a few years now.
These two things put together mean that the T-Roc doesn't get the interior that is close to the one in the all-new Golf 8, but instead something like the Golf 7.
Don't get me wrong, it's still not exactly outdated, but the difference is pretty obvious.
The front is cosy and accommodating, and decades of experience with developing ergonomics is obvious.
Finding a good seating position is easy enough, but please note that getting to that seating position requires some work. Seat adjustments are manual in this trim.
I also want to mention that rear visibility isn't the best, and the windows generally feel a bit narrow.
It feels like the doors come up higher and the window is narrower. I mean, it's pretty common in this segment, but there are some more airy kind of solutions.
The 8-inch screen is nice. It comes with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, as well as physical controls on the sides. Another plus in our opinion.
But I have to say the touchscreen is not the fastest or the highest resolution out there.
Of course, you get all the standard storage spaces like a glove box, armrest bin, albeit a bit narrow, a phone tray, 3 differently sized cup holders and door pockets, and 2 USB chargers up front.
Step into the back and you get an okay amount of space for a subcompact, but not loads. And the seating position is also quite high, which is both nice as well as good for one's knee angle.
The rear gets 2 more charging points, door pockets, cup holders in the armrest, and rear air vents, even in this entry-level trim.
Now that's a pretty high-tech feature that some models in this segment are yet to give us. I'm looking at you, Kona. But there's also another example of where Volkswagen have taken the high-tech just a little too far.
And all the USBs are USB-C ports.
Now, I don't know about you, but clearly I need to buy myself a USB-C phone charger, or at least an adapter, because currently I have a phone that is going dead as a doorknob and nowhere to charge it, but just 4 useless USB-C ports. Sigh.
4 people will have a comfortable ride, but 5 is too much. Not impossible, just not desirable.
It may sound strange at first, but the Style has a larger boot than the Sport.
The reason for this is that the Style is front-wheel drive only, so that leaves some extra space at the bottom of the boot.
It also means that there's a slightly more prominent load lip than in the Sport, but personally, I'd rather take more space and just live with a lip.
The boot in this one has a capacity of 445 litres, while the Sport has 392 litres of boot space. Fold the seats and you get 1,290 litres or 1,532 litres respectively. Expectedly, the T-Roc is pretty safe, with things like ABS, EBD, brake assist, ESP, hill start assist, anti-slip regulation, electronic differential lock, adaptive cruise control, auto curb function, blind spot monitor with rear traffic alert, driver fatigue detection, front assist with pedestrian detection, lane assist and lane departure warning, park assist, rear view camera and more.
This particular model is the entry one, but it's also one of 2 available versions.
So it's pretty well spec'd and it costs just under $34K, which is some $7K cheaper than the trim above it.
However, you can get optional upgrade packs that add a lot to the style and equipment, but also add a lot to the price.
In fact, with those packages ticked, the car with a smaller engine can easily catch up on that $7,000 of difference.
While this may not sound like a good thing, it actually is. What this means is that even though there are just 2 trim levels to choose from,
even the very bottom being nice, there are actually several levels of optional equipment that can seriously change some aspects of the car.
In all the other areas, the T-Roc is a pretty solid offering that keeps Volkswagen in its well-deserved high place, even when it is pitted against some pretty fierce competition from Asia.
However, being related to an older Golf, I do expect a recent update that may affect the materials, in a good way.
Thanks for watching CarTell TV. Hey, we're curious to know, what would you pick out of all of the subcompacts that we've reviewed? Does a T-Roc stack up? Let us know. See you next time, and have you subscribed?